Okay, so like the thing is three addiction right now is for like the actually right now using summoning to summoning spark in the tiny dog. Like I was like especially like my three addiction that like especially since like in Kakachi's like fight against Jabu thing like the like Kakachi had basically use some sort of a jutsu in this province like great number of dogs that have and big enough dogs are basically attack like Zabuza at that point. And also for definitely so Kakashi like summoning jutsu will be like a unique kind of summoning jutsu where like Kakashi could like of him. To be precisely the creature would be precisely dog friend like also for like Kakashi will be able to like summon might have like the power to like which is summoning jutsu and summon multiple dogs like at the same time. And then also for like unlike in Naruto's case like where like the brought the Gamabunta for brought that like Naruto had summoned just like uh, was like extremely huge. And also putting like from Takashi's case, like and that would be solely due to like Naruto having his like extra red chakra. That's definitely my perspective. Since like Kakashi and those different definitely won't be having like any extra special red chakra. Since Kakashi will be only having his like green chakra and those different maybe it might that might have also be a factor. That with like Kakashi with like Kakashi even maximum potential like this would be like I'm just putting like the maximum that Kakashi could of like the maximum kind of like strong summoning good source that Sakachi would be able to like create at this like maximum would be essentially dogs in like the range of like the normal size of like dogs from tiny dogs the size of like far from right now to like the average or like the usual normal kind of like big dogs. So it's definitely not just range and that I should be able to like summon multiple dogs at the same time. It's definitely also my percentage and sort of flavor of the impression right now as for like Akachi right now summoning Pakkun, a tiny dog like Pakkun instead of like a ferocious kind of like huge enough dog like the ones that Akachi had summoned during Akachi's fight against like Zabu saying like the dog. Number three, to be specifically due to like Kakashi prioritizing stealth and also bring things like the task that Kakashi has assigned Pakkun with is precisely to like basically track down Sasuke and those different precisely because the tracking down would be like that ultimate priority that Kakashi will be right now having. While attacking and saving Sasuke would be like the task that Kakashi would be like confident in that basically Naruto and Shikamaru and Sakura to them also going on with them collectively would be able to like the whole fighting and saving of Sasuke would be what Kakashi right now would be placing his like absolute confidence and faith in right now. It's definitely my personal impression. So and that coupled with like Sasuke as well, like having like Kakashi having trained Sasuke to reach like series level for strength, like Kakashi would get only confident in like their collective team efforts being able to like basically save Sasuke and get Sasuke back. It's definitely that confident that Kakashi will be having. So precisely because of this reason, I'm preferring like Kakashi might just the talent and also since like stealth is like an extremely high priority in like the kind of situation that Kakashi has right now, which is to do with because of that reason that Kakashi decide Kakashi right now deciding to let someone like a tiny dog like Pakkun is definitely my two for like definitely my personal impression right now is definitely for like Naruto. Once he wakes up like I'm going to say and see Pakkun like that from that point of view I'm going to say like Naruto to like not get along with like Pakkun at all. It's definitely like my personal impression. Naruto I'm just referring to only feel that Pakkun is just such a tiny dog and yet being so extremely bossy towards like Naruto. I feel like Naruto and all of the would be along the lines Naruto would be thinking it's like the confidential scenario that I was doing. I'm definitely pretty like Falcon to like only even though Falcon is like a tiny dog, like Falcon would definitely have to be would be having like a whole lot of experience taking part in like situations like this in like the past, like I say, might not definitely use like sought the help of Falcon in like all sorts of like range of situations like the Falcon situation like the past, and that way like the Falcon would be like even though it's like a tiny dog, it would have a lot of experience, so like it would have that absolute experience and like that absolute seniority kind of feeling, and hence I'm just deferring like Falcon to like kind of totally act bossy towards like Sakura, Shikamaru, as well as Naruto, but like I'm totally putting like Sakamaru as well as like Shikamaru would be like totally okay with this, but like I'm totally putting the scenario to be like Naruto totally not all okay with it at all. With like Naruto totally seeing Pakun as just like a tiny dog, and that way Naruto totally underestimating Pakum's skills, and hence like Naruto like totally not being able to like handle that Pakkun like acting bossy towards like Naruto, and that day like a whole lot of like a quarrel and like now see this kind of like fight between like Naruto and Pakkun happening is definitely like the scenario where about the role like and most of the impression. So like basically according to my personal impression and personal sense of the role like a lot of arguments between like Pakkun and like Naruto along the way they would be like chasing after Sasuke. Like I'm to bring like all that to like reflecting in like a lot of precious time being like lost. And I'm also bring so by then like I'm also bring like Sasuke would have like got up to Jara and Doro and Tamari. And I'm also bring there like I'm also bring by Sasuke totally Kankura totally freaking Sasuke's like scenario. But perfectly either Kankura or like Tamari totally like poking Sasuke, challenging Sasuke, and telling Sasuke to like and along the lines of like messing with like Sasuke's ego and telling Sasuke that if you're so strong, why don't you wait until like Gaara uh, and Gaara finishes his like ultimate like Sand Spirit form, so so that like you could fight Gaara in his like full strength. So like and then different Sasuke totally mainly falling for that and then different Sasuke allowing Gaara to like complete his like long Sanskrit giant Sanskrit form with the hand that and the different Gaara turning into his like ultimate giant Sanskrit form. And about the protect Sasuke with Gaara fight happening at that point and then the different Sasuke seems to struggling against Gaara and that was very Sasuke would be doing just everything even using his like and at that point I was bring even Sasuke Chidori won't be able to like into like nowhere near like enough of like a damage that did like before during like without the soon exam against Zara definitely was able to Zara's like entire like sand armor and everything would be a whole lot like superior with for once like Zara would be like transforming into its like giant sand spirit forms like the scenario and everything. And I was when that fight to like without any like Zara totally like and I was from like the moment Gara would be transforming into like giant self with form itself like Gara would be totally and fully losing all of the Gara's control. And I'm also saying that in that fight like I'm also training into the Gara giant self with form totally for and not only defeating Sasuke but like I'm also trying Gara totally about to take Sasuke like and I'm also trying it would be at that very last second that like Naruto and would be like finally be making it to that location. And I'm also trying it would be like Naruto's interference that would be like stopping like the Sanskrit form of Dara from taking Sasuke's life, and that way, like Naruto through Naruto's entrance, like the different interference, like Sasuke's life being saved, and like the scenario that I'm looking. So like I'm looking scenario to be like the giant and spirit form of Dara, like launch some form of like an ultimate attack to like Sasuke, and then and like Sasuke won't be even able to like torch or like defend himself because like Sasuke by then like would be like so badly defeated by Dara's like or strength and won't even be able to like move. So like at that very second, last second when Naruto would be showing up a bit, straight away like that's just to be like basically by Sasuke would be like totally feeling as if like he's about to die by like Dara. At that very last second, like I'm considering like that was being like the Gamabunta chief sword of Naruto, summoned sword of Naruto, like basically essentially blocking like the attack of like the giant and spirit. And that way Sasuke being saved was like the scenario that I was doing. And then I'm considering like the whole Naruto versus Gaara fight to like happen. So like I'm remembering even though the Chunin exam was like interrupted midway, even the Sasuke versus Gaara fight was like interrupted midway. In like the Chunin exam midway, still able to find like that precise, even though it was the outside of like the Chunin exam, still able to find precisely the precise Sasuke versus Gaara to like fully to fully happen and reach its like completion with like Gaara totally or for example, and then like even like the Naruto versus Gaara fight as well, totally being able to like happen with the Naruto and this like the Mazunta clone like fighting together against like Gaara's like giant and fifth forms like the scenario that I was doing and then was for instance is just like Naruto's only showing up with like Naruto, Shikamaru and Sakura like at that point if I'm also bring like Temari would be totally fighting up against like Sakura while Naruto will be fighting off against Gaara, Temari and to be fighting off against Sakura and like Kanturo would be like probably fighting off against like Shikamaru. It's like the scenario that happens. So like I'm also bring and especially since like the Gamabunta, like summoning creature of Naruto is like a toad, like I'm considering specifically because it's like a toad, I'm considering it might totally have like the power some sort of like power using the jutsu power using the which like it will be able to like shoot water from its like mouth to step limit and then like I'm considering that to be how like especially with, like Gara's powers are all sand based based on sand element like I'm considering like sand beams with comes to water it's like in the scenario that I'm considering so like I'm considering it will be eventually even though still Naruto I'm considering the strongest struggle against Gara or when stuff like the giants and still I'm considering eventually after like how Naruto will be defeating Gara I'm considering it will be especially through like the Gamato in the so like basically shooting out like water gun like water attack throats like mouth and basically that way like eventually rolling out for and defeating Gara of like the scenario that I'm of them. But still by the time that Naruto will be defeating Gara and basically uh uh Shikamaru would have defeated Kankuro as well as like Sakura would have only defeated Tamari. It's like the scenario that I'm of them. Yet like I'm different like even though they would all be defeated like Gara, Tamari and Kankuro would be defeated at that point and the different still like through that whole battle I'm different by then like Naruto, Sakura, as well as like Shikamaru will be so badly exhausted. And then Sasuke at that point would be either unconscious or like extremely and badly exhausted and injured and only being unable to move, even from like the outcome of like Sasuke's initial fight, outcome from like Sasuke's like, fight against Gaara, in which like Sasuke had lost it, like the scenario that episode. So like at that point, when the three of the four of them, like Naruto, Sakura, Shikamaru, as well as Sasuke, the four of them would be like at that point badly exhausted and unable to move. At that very point is when I'm discovering like the 300 giant snake to like make it to that precise location and precisely attack Sasuke. And at that point, they're only like survivability because like they would all be like closely like so there we absolutely nothing that they fully neither Sakura nor Naruto nor Shikamaru would be able to like basically stop like that giant uh, 300 snake from like attacking Sasuke. Like the scenario that I'm looking and then the right there itself like Orochimaru is making centering to that precise location. And at that point, I was like, Orochimaru only like only leaving like the leaf village, like the scenario that I'm considering. And I'm considering the scenario that might have led to that point would be precisely by then, by I'm considering like the whole Naruto versus Gaara fight would be like taking place. I'm considering by then like Orochimaru would have totally taken the life fought and taken the life of like the fourth Hokage, like the Coleman fourth Hokage, like the scenario that I was considering. So like and I was preparing like Jiraiya making it to that precise location, but like I'm wondering by the time Jiraiya would be making it, like Jiraiya would be too late, like the scenario that I was preparing. So like yeah, by the time Jiraiya would be making it, I was preparing Orochimaru would have totally taken the life of like the fourth Hokage, like the scenario that I was preparing. So like I'm preparing Jiraiya at that point itself, like trying to save like the Pop Hokage, but just like Jiraiya just being late just by a fraction of like a few seconds, and within that second, like I was suffering Orochimaru taking the life of the Dolmen Hokage, and I was suffering when Jiraiya would be showing up to that particular location, Jiraiya would be one Jiraiya would be seeing is like Orochimaru is taking the life of the Dolmen Hokage, is like the scenario that I'm suffering, and I was suffering maybe by then like Orochimaru as well might have thought me it through that fight against like the Fox of Orochimaru as well, I'm preparing to take a lot of injuries as well. So like I'm preparing by the time Jiraiya will be showing up, I'm preparing Orochimaru will be only feeling that like he simply can't like after like taking all the injuries fighting like taking down like the old man Hokage, he won't be able to like also fight against someone as strong as Jiraiya as well. So will be along the lines Orochimaru getting the extra scenario that I'm looking and right then it's still like coincidentally I'm preparing Orochimaru one of Orochimaru's henchmen like precisely showing up to that location and him like precisely showing Orochimaru that precise item which like definitely Orochimaru definitely would be up. Orochimaru won't be just but would be like attacking like the Leaf Village. The reason behind Orochimaru attacking like, the Leaf Village would be not definitely not just be for Orochimaru to achieve this to like actually destroy like the Leaf Village, especially because my brother remembers that like the recent interaction between Orochimaru and as well as like the All-Might Hokage itself, like when the Hokage even after like Orochimaru as a like basically Aruto like destroy like the Leaf Village, like at that point felt like Orochimaru had said something along the line. I think had said something along the lines as if like basically even Gaara's like ultimate Sanskrit transformation is like more exciting than destroying like the Leaf Village. Like since like Orochimaru initially said something along the lines. And then like towards the end, like end of like the interaction between like Orochimaru and like Solomon Hokage, Orochimaru had once again contradicted himself and kind of like contradicted himself and basically Orochimaru had talked about like the windmill turning and it's like turning off like the witness being like the destruction of like the leaf village, just like Orochimaru wants to do for like entertainment and all that. Like the William Butterfly proved that for contradiction, contradictory statement, which I think like Orochimaru had told to like the old man Hokage, which like the old man Hokage might have not paid attention to, which might have totally all been that Orochimaru's plan to like totally hide the fact that like it's not like actually like it wouldn't be like actually like the destruction of like the leaf village that Orochimaru would be actually up behind showing up right now to like the leaf village, but it would be precisely some ultimate sacred scroll that might contain some sort of like extremely forbidden and powerful jutsu within that scroll. So like for Orochimaru to like gain that power to be like that by stealing that scroll would be like such intent with which like Orochimaru might have shown up to like the village is definitely might have been very and precisely when Orochimaru showed up during like the and Orochimaru might have precisely showed up during like the second phase of the next and precisely assess like the current situation in like the village and all that. So it's definitely my personal range. Not to like initially attack, but to like correct to precisely assessing like the current situation in like the League and all that is definitely my good and that might have been when Orochimaru might have precisely found Sasuke and then like on top of like stealing the scroll Orochimaru might have planned and added goal to like precisely also other Sasuke as well. Might have been what might have happened is definitely important. So like I'm just bringing like the scenario to be like Orochimaru taking the life of like the fourth Hokage and by then like Jiraiya showing up and right then coincidentally itself like one of like Orochimaru's like henchmen Orochimaru might have suddenly sent to like stealthily might have Orochimaru might say since like Orochimaru elect past was in like the village Orochimaru might have suddenly told his henchmen with one of the like henchmen actually like where exactly that his role is like hidden within like the village so like while the and so like I'm just bringing like Orochimaru's like public display of like a fight against like the old man Hokage would be like Orochimaru's trick and tactic to like get like then attention of like the entirety of like the league village to precisely fall on like the fight between like, Orochimaru as well as like the old man Hokage so that like through that distraction like Orochimaru one of like Orochimaru's henchmen according to like Orochimaru's secret strategical plan could like probably easily be able to like stealthily infiltrate into like the precise location in like the league village where this precise providence scroll would be and so that like he could like only easily steal that providence scroll at that point it's like this would be like Orochimaru's plan is definitely not looking so like I'm precisely as Orochimaru would be like taking the life of like the Hokage, precisely Jiraiya showing up and precisely right then itself like that henchman of Orochimaru as well precisely showing up and signaling Orochimaru that basically he has successfully succeeded in like stealing like that precise scroll. So like at that point itself, like Orochimaru able to bring using some sort of it's like tricky jutsu able to bring Orochimaru escaping from Jiraiya is like the scenario that I'm going to play. And like I'm not sure it would be like precisely on Orochimaru's way back towards like leading like the new village that like Orochimaru would be like joining up with like the three-headed to like the location where like the three-headed snake where like the three-headed snake would be and like right then like three-headed snake would be like totally affecting Sasuke according to like Orochimaru's orders right then and I'm also bringing like that three-headed snake I'm stressing in my book and brushing would be like would be like the summoning creature of Orochimaru and also like Orochimaru's summoning creature would be like stretching into my book and brushing that like Orochimaru himself won't be like the human but like Orochimaru himself would be like the leader of like the snakes in like the world of like the summoning snakes, giant summoning snakes like about the leader of those snakes would be exactly what Orochimaru actually would be definitely my book. So like some like Hokage level and ninja from like some village in like the distant past might have totally summoned like the leader of like the snake in like the distant past and then also bringing like that snake might have been successful Orochimaru. So like I'm bringing Orochimaru might have stealthily tricked him and he might have been like though that ninja might have been a especially powerful ninja he might have been also pure hearted. So like number one Orochimaru might have some and like naive and innocent is definitely so like Orochimaru might have tricked him into like basically like growing that as if like basically Orochimaru had that absolute bond of friendship with him and basically that way like Orochimaru might have tricked him into like somehow eventually like he might have grown so uh, so fond of like the leader snake Orochimaru that his summoning creature then he might have somehow performed some sort of a jutsu using it like Orochimaru might have been able to like transform into a humanoid, like a human like form is definitely my good friend. And that will be like the present day Orochimaru. It's definitely my Orochimaru's form is definitely my good friend. So like that Orochimaru from turning into human form and like having arms and like at that point, I'm remembering like Orochimaru might have basically studied all the different kind of jutsus and all. Orochimaru might have then learned all sorts of like jutsu and basically Orochimaru might have been like exceptionally strong already as like with like the power of the year of the snake. But like on top of that, like Orochimaru turning like human form might have learned all sorts of like unique jutsu and might have also stolen like all sorts of like scrolls and learned all sorts of popular and powerful jutsu and basically end up defending Orochimaru using all these like jutsu might have only trick like and take stealthily might have tricked and betrayed and taken the life of that Orochimaru's owner that pure-hearted like ninja definitely my favorite. And then like Orochimaru might have since like Orochimaru like actually would according to my person would actually be from like the world of like the dimension of like the snakes summoning creatures like I'm bring Orochimaru only intent would be to like the destruction of like the entire world and then for Orochimaru to like destroy the entire world and then for Orochimaru to like turn back to like this snake world would be like only plan of Orochimaru. Orochimaru actually won't be even having like any purpose. Even Orochimaru starting like the Sun village and everything would be with this like eventual ultimate goal, which like Orochimaru would be like the only goal and thus to bring Orochimaru would want like the goal is also in it's also definitely my personal favorite. So like I'm bring so like Orochimaru, like the summoning creature that Orochimaru had brought in like that precise for the phase of like the joint next when I think like Orochimaru had fought up against like Naruto or Sasuke, like and was different that precise summoning creature would be like the precise actual original summoning creature of like Orochimaru, which would be like a giant snake with like a single head. It's definitely my favorite. So like Orochimaru itself being like a summoning snake, summoning creature snake, who's like the leader of the snake, like from taking humanoid form, human form, like he might have learned like the summoning jutsu to like precisely summon like snakes from like his like snake world. So like he might have precisely used that using that summoning jutsu, he might have precisely summoned the second strongest next snake from his like snake dimension, which he might have been definitely that absolute best friend of Orochimaru. Back when Orochimaru was like in that was like the leader of the snakes in that snake dimension. So like Orochimaru, so like that second strongest snake from like the snake dimension might be like Orochimaru's like actual original summoning creature snake is definitely my favorite impression. So as for like three-headed snake and the Prangi, it will be like actually belong the summoning creature snake that actually belongs to like a sound village in India who would be like that top right hand man of Orochimaru. Definitely my personal impression. So Orochimaru might have totally uh, sold him to like the precise exact taught him like the summoning goods and might have like sold him like the precise exact summoning snake to like summon and also bring that three-headed snake might be like the maybe like the third strongest snake in like the snake dimension of like Orochimaru's like snake dimensions. Definitely my favorite dimension. So precisely because of this reason, like that 300 snake right now, that's like basically attacking like the Leaf Village would be like actually a summoning creature that belongs to like Orochimaru's right hand man is definitely not different. So like precisely as Orochimaru would be like leaving the Leaf Village and was bring the right hand man straight away abducting Sasuke and then was bring like Orochimaru as well as like Orochimaru leaving along with like his right hand man fight attacking Sasuke and at that point like none of them like neither Naruto nor Sakura nor Shikamaru, none of them, all of them being so badly injured that none of them being able to do anything at all. That was scenario that I was bring. And unfortunately, also stitching into my working reality that such as Orochimaru would be like abducting and leaving with like Sasuke, but to bring for Hiruka Sensei like trying to like stop Orochimaru. But like I'm also bring like Orochimaru right then itself like villainously that Orochimaru right then like while Naruto would be like badly injured and on the sidelines and watching like Naruto would be only shouting at like Hiruka Sensei to like not attack like not try to like fight Orochimaru like is like too strong but like I'm going to bring Hiruka Sensei not listening to Naruto and like Hiruka Sensei only being filled with that absolute feeling of like that duty of like a ninja to like and to protect like the legal age and all that like from Orochimaru and all. So like with that mindset and all different Hiroka Sensei even though the odds would be like against Hiroka Sensei like and all different Hiroka Sensei only maybe deciding to like sacrifice himself and trying to like take Orochimaru down with him. So like I'm wondering, but like even before Orochimaru, they would be even be able to like do any of that. I'm wondering, Orochimaru, they would be like charging towards Orochimaru itself. Like I'm wondering, Orochimaru using some sort of like useful like pulling Orochimaru towards like Orochimaru, and like I'm wondering like poor Orochimaru dying like suffering death in front of Naruto, and that would be that absolute shock for Naruto and like will be creating that absolute fury of the letter rage within Naruto towards like Orochimaru, and that absolute desire to like get revenge on Orochimaru will be formed and take the life of Orochimaru might be formed within Naruto at that very last moment where like the uh, last thing that Naruto will be seeing will be like Orochimaru taking the life of like Chiroka Sensei and like Orochimaru like leading of like an affected Sasuke as well. This would be I'm looking like the last thing Naruto will be seeing before like I'm looking Naruto would be like totally extremely disturbed and like extremely like panicking and extremely disturbed that I'm looking like all that extreme emotions like ending up with like Naruto going unconscious at that point is like the scenario that I'm looking. So like definitely not the impression right now as for like Shino right now with like the serious space like basically leaving quickly and preparing like I'm like Shino right now would be like heading off to like somewhere specific to definitely make it and I'm definitely like leading more towards the possibility that like Shino eventually like definitely even after like hearing like the mission that like Kakashi had given to like Naruto, Sakura, and like Shikamaru. Still, I'm preparing right now for like Shino to like not stealthily chase after like Naruto and Kuro just to like lend them anything hand. Like that's like the lead kind of like the scenario that I was preparing. Right now, I'm preparing like the scenario that I'm preparing. I feel like where exactly Shino would be like living right now. Shino would be having like his own mission. Like Shino would have only because like I'm multiplying it might have right now multiplying it might have been himself alone that might have heard through his leg bug might have overheard like while the tune exam was taking place since like I think like had overheard something some sort of like an interaction between like the sound relation just what I think so like I'm multiplying definitely through that interaction, like what Chino might have heard through his leg, but might have implicitly something connecting to like Orochimaru's plan. And I'm considering leaning more towards the possibility that like that was something that Chino might have totally heard. Chino alone might have heard, might have been precisely the plan of Orochimaru to like stealthily send one of his henchmen to like precisely steal that extremely precious scroll from like the extremely precious and forbidden scroll which will be present in like the legalized discipline of payment and that being like Orochimaru's ultimate goal behind like the attack on like the attack that Orochimaru is having on like the legalized it's like would be along the lines like I'm bring like Shikamaru would have overheard even back then through like the bug is definitely my good advantage. So like I'm just wondering it might be Shikamaru alone that will be knowing this critical information. And I'm just wondering Shikamaru maybe like Shikamaru might have felt that like he would be like it would be best if he works alone rather than like reveal that in such a crucial information to like Kakashi or Kai inside. So they were maybe Shikamaru might have decided or like maybe it might be like Shikamaru off of the things that he might be able to like solve that like whole situation with like the possible scroll stealing plan of like Orochimaru like all by himself like and maybe it would be I'm leaning more to possibility that like with that intent I'm going to bring Shikamaru solely with like him alone like possibly like or hearing that critical conversation currently to like Orochimaru plan I'm going to bring right now like Shikamaru disappearing I'm going to bring Shikamaru will be disappearing and going off with his own goal to potentially stop that like henchman of like Orochimaru who will be like heading off to like to basically steal that road from like the Leaf Village. It's like the scenarios that I'm looking at. But like I'm totally putting like and that's like the scenario that I'm looking at. Exactly. Shikamaru eventually trying to like stop that henchman of Orochimaru and I'm wondering Shikamaru also like totally succeeding in that. It's like the scenario that I'm looking at. And Shikamaru getting back that scroll is like also like the scenario that I'm looking at. But like I'm looking that would be when like Orochimaru's like brilliance would be like basically at that point revealed because like Orochimaru might have only foreseen even such such scenario happening. So that like I'm going to bring maybe Orochimaru on top of might have not just sent a single henchman for like the feeling of this like sake of for but I'm going to bring like Orochimaru might have also sent given orders to like another henchman to like show up to that precise location as like backup after certain time period like. And that way I'm able to bring that backup ninja henchman of Orochimaru would be a whole lot stronger than the initial ninja who would have gone to like try to like steal that scroll. Definitely able to bring it. So like I'm able to bring Shino to like basically take out and defeat like the initial ninja and steal back and get back the scroll. But like I'm able to bring the second backup ninja that will be showing up, I'm able to bring him to be a whole lot stronger, and I'm going to bring him totally possibly like overpowering and defeating Shino and like him getting away with like the scroll. It's like the scenario that I'm depicting. And that way eventually you're resulting in like Orochimaru still getting like the scroll is like giving the scenario that I'm also bring and also so like definitely when was in the impression right now, it's like Orochimaru right now revealing that he has in fact fought off against like the old man for Hokage in like the past. Like I'm also like back then like Orochimaru might have Orochimaru's levels of strength back then might have been nowhere even near comparable to like the current levels of strength that Orochimaru is because he's definitely at the level. So I'm considering that fight that Orochimaru might have against like the old man Hokage in like the past, like I'm considering like the result might have been like Orochimaru only embarrassingly losing against like the old man Hokage. Like at that point, like Orochimaru might have been like far extremely weaker when compared to like the old man Hokage. It's definitely not different. So like there will be that whole memory of like embarrassingly losing against like the old man Hokage in like Orochimaru ingrained in like Orochimaru's mind even to the present day is definitely memorable to it. So like even while right now Orochimaru is like totally acting all calm and more confident and preparing, there will still be that element of like that traumatic kind of like a fear lying within like Orochimaru connected to that embarrassing loss that Orochimaru might have definitely had in like the past when Orochimaru in the past had fought up against like the old man Hokage. It's definitely my consideration. There will be definitely that element of like that because like a fear lying definitely within Orochimaru right now as like Orochimaru right now once again about the fight against like the old man Hokage. Definitely my consideration. So like I'm considering maybe that fight that Orochimaru had fought off against like the old man Hokage in like the past might have been not at all a friendly fight or like a fight when it comes to like a friendly training, healthy training fight or anything. I'm considering it might have been like a fight that might have taken place during some war that exactly like in like the current situation Orochimaru might due to like Orochimaru's like villainous intent and stealthy ways like I'm considering Orochimaru might have created like another war, like another war might have totally took place in like the village in like the in past, where like the root cause of it might have been precisely Orochimaru betraying like the new village, and so like I was in the middle of that war might have been when like Orochimaru might have fought off against like the old man Hokage with like the intent to like take the life of like the old man Hokage, but like I'm also talking like uh, back then like Orochimaru not being all that strong at all, and then also like the old man Hokage might have only overpowered, seriously injured and overpowered and defeated like Orochimaru. And I'm also even though back then I was maybe like definitely like the old man Hokage might have been so strong that he might have been able to like take the life of like Orochimaru if he wanted, but like I'm considering solely due to like I'm considering like the old man Hokage might have been totally fond of like Orochimaru until then as like a student. So like I'm considering due to all that emotions, like I'm considering the old man Hokage possibly maybe might have not been able to like bring himself to like take the life of Orochimaru. And that way, like it might have been actually like the due to that emotions like totally like getting in the way of like the old man really taking the life of Orochimaru. That might have been also like possibly the reason for like maybe I'm just different back then like Orochimaru might have been able to like escape like the liquidation might have even happened solely due to that emotional situation that like the old man Hokage might have had, which that was old man Hokage to decide not to take Orochimaru's life. It's definitely my personal impression. Also, like definitely my personal impression right now as for like the Anbu Black Ops like dialogue that basically the dialogue surrounding like Orochimaru and like the old man Hokage right now can only be broken from within and not from the outside. Like I'm just bring that thought of like if that even like the Anbu Black Ops things. I'm just bring them to it only eventually be proven wrong is like the scenario that I'm looking and it will be about the bring to be proven wrong precisely by Jiraiya, like the scenario that I'm looking and then the bring eventually by the time Jiraiya will be showing up, I'm still thinking about the payment with that, even though it will be too late, like I'm bring it will be like when Jiraiya will be showing up to that location, like the situation will be like I'm still thinking about the payment like Orochimaru about to take the life of like the old man. Okay, so like at that point I was bring the Wesley as Jiraiya will be showing up like the maybe like this very exact and the black of person will be like standing right there, unable to do anything. So like I'm maybe him shouting out to like Jiraiya that no, this like shield can't be broken from the outside. So like at that point, I was referring to Jiraiya with like just a single attack, like instantly shattering that precise like barrier that containing like Orochimaru and like the old man Hokage. But like by the time Jiraiya will be shattering it and would be able to like enter within that barrier itself, like what Jiraiya would be seeing would be like the old man Hokage having taken that ultimate final attack of Orochimaru and like Goldman Hokage like already about to die. And that, at that point there will be absolutely nothing that I would be able to do to like save like the right of like Goldman Hokage's like the scenario, the scenario that I'm supposed to bring against the signal the news and my person to Rangers. So like the limit of the Rangers right now is definitely that like Orochimaru right now would be totally underestimating like Goldman Hokage with like just having like the snake of Orochimaru with like the neck of the old man Hokage. Like I was referring like definitely that would be like the strategy of like and trick of like the old man Hokage for the tricking like Orochimaru. Because like I was referring that besides old man Hokage that like the snake of Orochimaru had with on the neck would be precisely like the old man Hokage's clone. It's definitely my personal definitely my personal impression is that basically like the throwing of like the roof tiles by like the old man Hokage might have been precisely the point when like the might have been like the precise distraction created by like the old man Hokage, but like the old man Hokage might have totally switched into like a clone of like the created a clone of like the old man Hokage put the clone on like the precise spot where like the old man Hokage was like standing there, like the actual real old man Hokage might have steadily moved around and would be like considering like without much delay would be like attacking like Orochimaru, precisely as like Orochimaru would be totally naively assuming that basically underestimating like the old man Hokage and naively assuming that like the snake of Orochimaru that has fit like the old man Hokage right now is actually the real old man Hokage. It's definitely my personal impression. So like definitely my personal impression right now is that like even though right now Orochimaru is like thoroughly underestimating like the it's like Orochimaru is right now extremely overconfident and thoroughly underestimating like the old man Hokage. And Orochimaru still like as like the fight between like Orochimaru and like the fourth Hokage progress like I'm the old man Hokage bringing out so much of like unexpected techniques and strategies and power that I'm to bring like the Orochimaru's like expectations would be totally thoroughly broken by the techniques that like the old man who is like only using like which like techniques that like I'm going to bring after like the last time Orochimaru had fought out against like the old man Hokage, which like old man Hokage might have been secretly might have been still even to the present might have been potentially sharpening his skills each and every single day with that absolute stealth he might have been secretly training even to this very present day. It's definitely my birthday impression regardless of like whole days about the bring into Hokage might have been carefully sharpening his skills and strength each and every single day, and that might have been like definitely due to like him and he might have definitely done that definitely due to like him feeling as like responsible for like him being in like the position of like the Hokage level position like and him being responsible for like to ensure like the protection of like the leaf village even to like the point or like even to the title it dies. So like there will be that always that feeling of like responsibility always like in like that mindset of like always that feeling of like responsibility that might have always existed within like the old man Hokage like at every moment at every day depending on those revolutions. So like I'm referring to set because of reason like the old man Hokage might have been sharpened still like stealthily training each and every single night might have been even to the present I might have been what might have happened. It's definitely the infections or like I'm set because of this person I'm the like the old man Hokage like right now in this fight against Orochimaru like eventually bringing out all that through skills and like strength and everything, like all those unique techniques that Orochimaru might never even expect out of like the fourth Hokage. Like what I'm describing, like eventually for like the fourth Hokage to like bring out, and I'm considering that getting Orochimaru to see the struggle, and at that point, like that fear, that bit of fear that would be like totally even right now would be like lying in the dead Orochimaru. That fear to totally start to like grow and consume like Orochimaru getting that whole flashback of like the last time Orochimaru had fought against like the Old Man Hokage, where like Orochimaru had like almost died. Might have been what might have happened in like the past second members of so like all those memories still kicking in to like Orochimaru's like scenario that I'm doing, and that way like I'm referring to Old Man Hokage like totally starting to like or eventually starting to like overpower and seem to get an serious advantage against Orochimaru. And seriously starting to like overpower Orochimaru's like the scenario that I'm referring. But like I'm referring as like before maybe I'm considering this time the old man Hokage might be totally, and right now the old man Hokage will be totally regretting his decision the last time the old man Hokage fought off against Orochimaru. When I'm considering the old man Hokage might have got specifically my Buster emotions might have only been due to the emotions getting in the way of the old man Hokage in finishing off and taking the life of the Orochimaru might be it's total for Orochimaru even being alive to the present day. And even right now launching this attack and everything is definitely my Buster so right now the old man Hokage would be regretting that his decision in that distant past which might have been in the distant past of letting Orochimaru of not taking Orochimaru's life. So I'm spending this time in the current Orochimaru's versus the Orman fight. I'm spending eventually the fight for free. Eventually I'm spending like Orman Hokage totally starting to get power for Orochimaru, and then I'm spending the Orman Hokage actually this time. Deciding to take the life of Orochimaru, and I'm going to bring for instance the old man Hokage will be about to take the life of Orochimaru. At that point, I'm also bringing there will be absolutely nothing Orochimaru would be able to do. Orochimaru probably being overpowered by the old man Hokage and the old man Hokage about to take the life of Orochimaru. Scenario that I'm also thinking. But at that point, I'm also bringing two possibilities as to how Orochimaru will be totally getting that kill and resulting in the old man Hokage dying. And I'm also bringing it would be either through among the four ninjas that's basically some village ninjas that's totally placing the barrier around this Orochimaru versus uh, the Hokage fighting location basically these four among these four sound village henchmen of Orochimaru at that very last second as the old man Hokage would be about to take the life of Orochimaru, them totally interfering, them totally through that absolute cheating, them totally interfering into the fight and them totally attacking the old man Hokage, possibly even together from precisely as old man Hokage will be able to take the life of Orochimaru, and that giving that Orochimaru that that opening that would be just enough for Orochimaru at that point to be able to take the life of the old man Hokage, and that way the old man Hokage die by the hands of Orochimaru. So then so that would be such an unsatisfactory victory for Orochimaru, the overconfident Orochimaru's ego and overconfidence will be shattered by the overwhelming strength of the old man Hokage at that point. So at that point, even though Orochimaru would be taking the life of the old man Hokage is the scenario that I'm still it would be such an extremely unsatisfactory victory for Orochimaru. So this is one possibility of how I'm going to eventually for the old man Hokage to die by the hands of Orochimaru. The possibility that I'm going to bring is definitely for precisely at that very last moment where I'm going to bring the old man Hokage was it only or for Orochimaru and would be about to take the life of Orochimaru at that very last second. The whole extreme old age factor of the and health issues that the old man Hokage would be already having that to totally kick in at that very last moment and that causing the old man Hokage to not execute not be able to execute that final attack on Orochimaru and that possibly giving that opening for Orochimaru to be able to basically strike back and take the life of the old man Hokage at that very last second is and that way the old man Hokage dying by the hands of Orochimaru. It's the other possibility as to how I'm interpreting the old man Hokage to eventually die in this current fight. Towards the ending of this current fight against Orochimaru. It's the possible scenario that I'm basically bring about the reality. So definitely that is very interesting right now as for the summoning jutsu that Orochimaru right now used to basically has a shield. I'm considering the two things that basically have basically sprouted out from the root and basically would be those two things would be the two coffin of the first first and second Hokage that method actually died definitely not it would be it is just that thing that was erected from the ground had some sort of a writing in it I'm considering it might have definitely been the coffin of the first and the first and the second Hokage with their name on this coffin that might have totally erected on from the ground as and Orochimaru would be totally using that as a shield against the pop Hokage to precisely psychologically kind of impact the poor old man Hokage to basically to hurt the poor old man Hokage in such a manner mentally in such a manner would be the villainous way of in which Orochimaru right now would be fighting against the old man Hokage right now it's definitely my preference to totally bring down like the morale of like the old man Hokage right now would be what like Orochimaru would be right now thoroughly doing, and that would be like the current strategy of like Orochimaru like right now Orochimaru is like fighting off against like the old man Hokage. Definitely my preference, and this might be the best reason for like the fourth Hokage right now even saying that like I must stop before like the third one. Like the third one would be like in referring to like the third Hokage's like coffin, like before because like I'm going to bring like the third Hokage might have definitely be that as good, that I'm going to bring like the fourth Hokage like as well, like might have totally even to the person they might have totally seen like the fourth Hokage as like the absolute hero. And like maybe even as like an idol or like that absolute hero like would be how like the fourth Hokage might have seen like so the Hokage like definitely my even after like the even like the depth of like the Hokage as well being for like the protection of like the Leaf Village and also bring like so much of respect might have towards like the Hokage might be present for like the fourth Hokage towards like third Hokage. It's definitely my personal impression, and especially today, especially because of that like I'm also saying like even psychologically like the old man Hokage simply might not be able to like handle like the extreme disrespect that like Orochimaru we totally doing by basically using like the coffin of the third Hokage as like a shield in like a fight against like the old man Hokage. It's definitely my favorite energy. Like the old man Hokage would be totally seeing that as like extreme disrespect for and him. While like he would be like the old man Hokage right now would be saying that I must stop Orochimaru before like the third one, like which would be the third Hokage's like third Hokage's like coffin was definitely my favorite impression. So considering this like Orochimaru might have only figured out like the Old Man Hokage even like after like Orochimaru's like initial loss against like the Old Man Hokage in like the past like I'm considering Orochimaru totally figured out like the Old Man Hokage as to, like what exactly his weakness is like extreme genuinity and like I'm considering like to totally use like that absolute kind-heartedness of like the fourth Hokage like against like the fourth Hokage empathy and kind-heartedness and respect for that like the good qualities like the fourth Hokage having like basically to totally use all that against like the fourth Hokage in while eventually like Orochimaru will be fighting off against like the fourth Hokage the next time, and that way to like totally use all that against like the fourth Hokage to like make bring down like the fourth Hokage like moral, and that way to like make him weak, and that way to like or and defeat and like the life of like the fourth Hokage would be what like Orochimaru might have even planned beforehand as for like this second time like Orochimaru will be fighting off against like the old man Hokage at that point using all this as like a strategy to like bring down like and defeat like the old man Hokage and take the life of the old man Hokage would be what like I'm considering Orochimaru might have only planned even beforehand. That would be right now what Orochimaru right now in this fight against like the old man Hokage would be like right now even executing. It's definitely also my preference. So like I'm considering like Orochimaru himself might be like genuinely deep down even while putting on his like showing all this or content and considering like Orochimaru would be totally hiding his true self, which would be like genuinely deep down well and fully fearful of like government, not only just fearful of like the government Hokage, but also might also be like deep down like Orochimaru would be also deep down would be like well and fully aware that basically Orochimaru even with Orochimaru's like current levels of strength like doesn't stand a chance at like defeating like Tournament Hokage in like a fair which he fought off against like Tournament Hokage in like a fair fight. So like I'm not going to say because of that. Possibly like the Orochimaru even knowing this would be like the first reason for like Orochimaru using such villainous strategies to like bring down like the morale of like the Tournament Hokage, because like Orochimaru might himself be that much absolutely sure that is with that that is the current level of strength of Orochimaru, that will be like the only way for Orochimaru would be to be even be able to like defeat like the old man okay would be maybe one thing that Orochimaru would be well fully aware of. It also doesn't make like all this like overconfidence or confidence that like Orochimaru and underestimation of like the old man Hokage that like Orochimaru's like right now constantly doing would all be like a fake act to hide that absolute fear of like that Orochimaru would be having towards like the old man Hokage. It's definitely my secondary impression. So like definitely my secondary impression right now with like those two things that got selected from like the ground like and having some sort of a name in it like which I'm only putting would be like the coffins of like the first and like the second Hokage, like with those two coffins like right now slowly opening up. Definitely my personal impressions that like right now, especially with like Orochimaru has already revealed that basically he have like the power to like possess others, especially with like the second phase of like the phase of like two like them since like Orochimaru had totally possessed one of like the candidate of like the of like the in like the participating in like the second phase of like the two election members in like a similar manner like Orochimaru might also have like the power to like remotely control like remotely even control dead bodies as well. It's definitely my personal impression. So like as if to like basically move them move dead bodies as like a zombies like maybe like Orochimaru might have such power as well. So like I'm preferring the like that would be like set jutsu that would be Orochimaru right now would be using. So like I'm preferring right now with those two coffins like opening up and with like the old man Hokage even saying that basically why along the lines of it like why he chose of all people so, why Orochimaru chose those two precise people. I'm preferring to be precisely the coffins of like both like the first and second Hokage that but like those two coffins slowly opening up and preferring like the first as well as like the second Hokage would be present like in that coffin as they would have totally definitely died like but still it would be like Orochimaru controlling them and like that way Orochimaru being able to like remote control them simultaneously using some sort of like unique jutsu and using them to like fight against like the old man Hokage would be what them the person that Orochimaru would be like the strategy that Orochimaru would be like right now using against like the old man Hokage and Orochimaru even going through to this extreme extent to like fight the fight and defeat like the old man Hokage. I'm still thinking to my them it would be precisely because like Orochimaru not even in like current levels of strength, like not having like the strength, not being strong enough to like be able to like properly like a fair one versus one fighting against like the old man Hokage to be able to like defeat like the old man Hokage is definitely my good prediction. Hence, why like he would be using all this like Orochimaru be using like this cheat and villainous kind of like strategy to basically like weaken and bring down like the morale of like Dorman Hokage as like that would be like the only way for like Orochimaru I think like current strength to be able to like defeat like Dorman Hokage. It's definitely my Bunzuri so that is still thing on to. So like I'm referring right now for like the even though it would be kind of disturbing and I'm bring right now for like the first and second Hokage will like show up from that coffin and like Orochimaru controlling like, the first and second Hokage and making them fight like Dorman Hokage. So considering like it being extremely kind of like disturbing, it being kind of like disturbing and hard for like the old man Hokage. Still, I'm considering like the old man Hokage not letting that bring him down and bring his morale down, and I'm considering like the old man Hokage defeating successfully like offering and defeating and taking out like the first as well as second Hokage. It's like the scenario that I'm considering. So like at that point, like the old man Hokage would be totally relieved that basically he has finally surpassed that situation. But like that would be when I'm bring like by the time like the old man Hokage would be totally focused on like taking out like the in like the fight against like the first as well as second Hokage. That I'm trying it would be that things will be ongoing according to like Orochimaru's plan. When Orochimaru's fight against like the old man Hokage, even right now would be only going exactly according to like the precise plan that Orochimaru might have made as to like how exactly he will be like fighting and bringing down like the old man Hokage that he might have pre-planned even before this fight. It would like currently the fight be going exactly according to that plan. And according to Orochimaru's plan, it might have definitely been Orochimaru might have only expected like the old man Hokage to be able to like prevent like from like the third Hokage's coffin being able to be erected. So like I'm also putting like so like this will be precisely Orochimaru's plan right now to like trick like the old man Hokage into like getting like the old man Hokage distracted into like totally being focused on fighting like the first as well as the second Hokage while I'm also putting like by the time like the old man Hokage would be distracted and totally would be finally overpowering and defeating and taking out like the first and second Hokage like at that by then like Orochimaru will be having like more than enough time to like basically once again bring out like the attempt to like bring out like the coffin of like the third Hokage. So like I'm considering that's like the scenario that I'm supposed happen with like the old man Hokage. By the time he would be taking out like the first and second Hokage, what the old man Hokage and at that point like the old man Hokage only finally feeling relieved after like he has overcome such a situation. But like at that point itself like the old man Hokage getting like the biggest twist of a shock with like Rodman Hokage seeing like the third coffin right behind him. right behind Orochimaru, like at that point, like already being corrected and basically the with like the fourth Hokage, with like the third Hokage coming out of like the third coffin. It's like the scenario that I'm different. So like I'm different like at that point, like the fourth Hokage being like absolutely shocked, and I'm different at that point. I'm different like the once again like Orochimaru at that point as well, like remote controlling like the third Hokage and like making like the third Hokage fight off against like the normal Hokage. So like at that point I was different like even Kakashi maybe by then like he would be able to like might see or like maybe like the Amber Black of like them all watching like the fight, they will be like shockingly seeing like all this happening and so like I'm just bringing it to be precisely like once like Orochimaru will be bringing out like the third Hokage and remotely controlling like the third Hokage to fight up against like the old man Hokage, even though it would be like the third Hokage all by himself, like when compared to like the scenario in which like I'm still thinking about the person that the Hokage would be able to like only offer and defeat like the first and second Hokage while they will be fighting like the old man Hokage together. Yet like I'm considering once like the third Hokage would be like fighting off against like the old man Hokage in like a single fight. Still I'm considering in that fight I'm considering would be like when like the old man Hokage won't be able to like bring himself to like to actually be able to like attack like the third Hokage. It will be extremely of that much of like that would be that extreme level of like respect that like the old fourth Hokage would be having towards the third Hokage that like he would be like totally struggling to even attack like the third Hokage, even though the old man Hokage would be well and fully aware that basically it would be obvious for like the fourth Hokage that it's just not like the third Hokage who's already dead, that it's like he's like being controlled by Orochimaru still due to that extreme respect like that the fourth Hokage would be having towards the third Hokage, in like the fourth Hokage is still being like extremely weak and like having his morale extremely down and like getting emotional and that totally affecting the fourth Hokage's fight performance and him struggling to like attack back like the third Hokage and then the thing. Eventually that fight resulting in like the third Hokage totally like overpowering and defeating and taking the life of like the fourth Hokage. So like I'm preferring for like the scenario to not be like Orochimaru, it being Orochimaru that using like a direct jutsu attack like taking the life of like the fourth Hokage, but like I'm preferring it would be like Orochimaru through like the third Hokage, like I'm considering it would be like third Hokage that would be like landing that final attack on like the fourth Hokage and basically taking the life of like the fourth Hokage, like the scenario that I'm just only putting and I'm consideration. And I'm also putting like slightly once like the and I'm also putting like the fourth Hokage, old man fourth Hokage would be having that extreme disturbing of like suffering of like a death by the hands of like the person who he respects so much, like basically even though remotely controlled by Orochimaru still I'm also putting it to be precisely that absolute shocking of like that that I'm just putting for like to be like how like the fourth Hokage will be dying by the hands of like the third Hokage remote controlled by Orochimaru. And I'm firstly also right now totally putting like precisely as like the fourth Hokage would be dying. I'm also putting straight away like Orochimaru like bringing up using his like unique jutsu to like bring out one more coffin and I'm also bring like Orochimaru like totally using his like jutsu like putting like the fourth Hokage as well into that coffin and basically like that way like in like Orochimaru's like basically Orochimaru that by getting like keeping one more coffin and this would be like the coffin of like the fourth Hokage. So like I'm referring eventually in like the distant future once like Naruto eventually in like the distant future would definitely be having that ultimate fight against like Orochimaru and at that point I was referring Naruto. By then I was referring Naruto even like finding out about like definitely through like maybe like someone I was referring Naruto only by then like probably finding out about like the third Hokage being like Naruto's father. It's like the scenario that I'm describing. And yet like I'm describing like in that ultimate fight I'm describing like Orochimaru. I'm describing initially in that fight like I'm describing in that fight I'm describing like the initial problems that like Orochimaru would be totally using it to like fight against Naruto in like the Western future. So be like the problems of like the first Hokage, second Hokage, and like possibly like initially I'm considering maybe it would be like just like the first and second Hokage, but like Naruto would be like finally defeating like the first and second Hokage. At that point, I'm considering Orochimaru to totally bring like the fourth token of like the fourth Hokage. So like that itself I'm considering to be kind of like difficult for like Naruto to like defeat But still, I was very Naruto struggling with Swain, like defeating like the remotely Orochimaru remotely controlled for Hokage as well. Like the scenario that I was covering. And that at that point would be when I was covering Orochimaru bringing out like the topics of like the third Hokage, like Naruto's father. Like and at that point it would be like extremely hard on the defense of Naruto, who at that point would be well and fully aware that like the third Hokage is like Naruto's father, and this is like Naruto has never been able to like see his father. Since Naruto's father, like the Hokage, had died, like while Naruto was like a baby, and it seems like Naruto has never seen his like father, and definitely there would be that absolute longing for like Naruto deep within Naruto, which like Naruto might have never told anyone. For like Naruto might be deep down so badly wishing that he could like at least once see his like parents, like but like I'm also bring that wish and desire that might have been lying within Naruto's entire time of being ending up being fulfilled in such an extreme manner through like Orochimaru, remotely like bringing out controlling like the third Hokage and making the third Hokage fight like Naruto and attack Naruto. That would be extremely disturbing for like Naruto, and Naruto I'm considering totally struggling extremely hard, but like I'm considering eventually Naruto like struggling his way to like eventually even taking out like the third Hokage, and then I'm considering like that absolute fury of like Naruto would be unleashed onto like Orochimaru at that point, and I'm considering like Orochimaru definitely uh, considering definitely Naruto would be like taking the ensuring to like take the life of Orochimaru, and and I'm considering Naruto did not stop at that point until like Naruto it like Naruto's like absolute certainty that basically Orochimaru has died, and that would be how I'm considering Orochimaru would be like eventually dying by the hands of like Naruto. It's definitely the eventual difference in the scenario that I'm considering and the movie impression. Yeah, so like correction because like this entire time when I said like the third Hokage, I meant Naruto's father. And when I said like the fourth Hokage, I meant like the old man Hokage, but like in actuality, like the fourth Hokage is like Naruto's father, while like the third Hokage is like the old man Hokage. So like this is like the correction that I am to make. Right. So like the phenomenon that I am mentioning right now is that basically the third Hokage telling Konohamaru about like the rainbow having like a rainbow symbolizing snake, like I'm that ambassador thing might have been like an interaction between like the third Hokage and Konohamaru that might have taken place precisely after like the second phase of like the Chunin exam. Definitely remember correct. After precisely Orochimaru had showed up to like the village precisely during like the second phase of the Chunin exam. It might be after that I'm coming that this whole walk with this whole interaction between like the Hokage and Konohamaru had happened is definitely my personal. So like since then like about the since like Orochimaru had been like stealthily been present in like the village in like multiple forms in like the form of Orochimaru as well, like stealthily hiding, and also like in the form of one of like the teachers of like the also as like one of like the Orochimaru had been in like the form of like the disguise of one of like the joining teacher of like the sound village and all that, like basically if like Orochimaru's presence was like there ever since like Orochimaru's presence this time was Orochimaru had showed up to like the leaf village. It might have been since then that I'm looking like this this precise rainbow might have precisely formed precisely around like the sun. So like I'm considering that to be like the precise symbol for like the snake, not just any rainbow, but like a rainbow that like precisely encircling like the sun would be like what like the precise symbol of like snake would be. And I'm considering that it would only have to do with like I'm still thinking to my personal remembrance that like Orochimaru not being a human, but like Orochimaru actually being like the leader of like the uh, summoning snakes from like the snake world. Like basically there will be whole lot of snakes, especially strong snakes present there, and like the leader of all those snakes would be perfectly Orochimaru. And I'm considering like that all the snakes would be like each and every single one of those snakes would be like villainous nature, and I'm considering Orochimaru being like the most villainistic among the it's also definitely my favorite. And so like I'm considering wherever like Orochimaru goes, I'm considering like the reviews phenomenon of like that of like the sun of like a rainbow in something like the sun. It's definitely my favorite. So even while the Hokage told Konohamaru about like the rainbow symbolizing snake, like even right then like the old man Hokage would be well and might have been well and fully aware of like Orochimaru's presence being present in like the leaf village, like Orochimaru present being like the sword stealthy presence in like the league village, being like the sword leader for like that precise rainbow being formed around like the sun like that. So definitely my personal impression. I'm going to bring since like ancient history. I'm going to bring like this might have definitely been a thing where like whenever like where like I was bring like maybe even ninjas might have been like even from like the ancient past might have been only forbidden from like might have been allowed to like summon all sorts of like summoning creatures, but to never but might have been always forbidden from like summoning uh, any snake creature from like the snake dimension like because like snakes might have been viewed as like villainous by like the people back then. It's definitely like the ambition. So and then considering like uh, definitely this like one ninja in like the distant past might have totally broken that role. Like I'm considering like with that absolute role which might have existed where like summoning snake creatures might have been absolutely forbidden. Like that might have raised like the extreme curiosity of like one ninja who might have totally wanted to like break that rule and certainly wanted like to summon a snake creature and that process summoning might have been precisely done by that ninja, and the precise snake creature that might have been probably summoned by that ninja might have been precisely the leader of all the snakes, and that might have been precisely Orochimaru. Definitely my thoughts are so like I'm considering and the bonds of like the people then like I'm considering like eventually ended up being through with like the villainistic like Orochimaru eventually show like hiding its like villainistic nature and eventually resulting in like the summoning snake like Orochimaru, like basically it only forming like friendship with like that say owner of like Orochimaru and basically like eventually into tricking his God to like tricking into like using learning and using some sort of like a boost on Orochimaru and that way like Orochimaru was like transformed into like a human like was able to like get like access to human form with like basically my able. So like Orochimaru having like was that way getting like hands like hands and fingers like in that way like Orochimaru might has like a in like human form might have using it like fingers with like Orochimaru having access to gaining fingers like and hands like Orochimaru might have spear all sorts of like forbidden jutsu and that might be like the point where Orochimaru's like strength might have gained that extreme sharp increase from like the limited strength even though that might have been definitely exceptional strength still like the limited from like the limited strength of being like of like a someone snake to like basically like grown sharply in strength through like using like stealing and gaining and using like all sorts of like tools to using like Orochimaru, the snake Orochimaru's finger and all that like in like human form. And all that's definitely my perspective. So like especially because of situations and I'm different even from ancient times like I'm different like there might have definitely been on top of that there possibly having like existed such a role that forbid everyone from like it will be only against the role to like even someone like a snake creature like and whenever such a thing if such a thing even happens it might have also been told in the past that whenever a snake creature is like summoned to like the real world at that point itself like the it might have been said in like the ancient books that basically rainbows would be precisely formed around like the sun. Like this might have been like and I'm considering there might be actual proof to it, and that might be the precise reason for like even right now in like the person like the sun having like this like rainbow surrounding it. It definitely members of the right now. Definitely members in the repression right now is that basically right now like the sun having like basically like a rainbow surrounding it would be not just due to like the three-headed snake that the summon snake it would be like near some creature like that three-headed snake that like right now attacking like the lake villages might not just be due to that like it might even if that three-headed snake wasn't present in like the lake village example still that precise like a rainbow encircling the sun would still be present specifically because like Orochimaru himself would be actually a summon snake and not just any summon snake, but like the leader of like the or the summoning snake creature in like the snake dimension. Definitely my Dr. Anderson and that is the thing on the Dr. Anderson. Definitely my Dr. Anderson right now with like Sonohamaru, I don't like it all this like extreme suspicion concern and like having a concern over like something wrong in like the this kind I think areas of like the deep village and the bring this like suspicions of like Konohamaru, you think the resulting in like Konohamaru, so it's making out and the different Konohamaru eventually sneaking out and all by himself, like ending up in like that precise uh, eastern part of like the village and eventually Konohamaru that way ending up in like the middle of the war. It's like the scenario that I'm considering, and that way like I'm considering eventually like I'm considering like maybe like it would be while Naruto would be fighting up against Gaara, like the Sanskrit Gaara, or like maybe like some sort of like an extremely intense situation in like the war, like I'm considering like Konohamaru would be like only like naively sneaking into that location and basically getting Konohamaru getting into like serious trouble, and that causing like uh, a lot of like ninjas to die. It's definitely meant of the emotion just to solely to protect Konohamaru and considering like uh, a lot of ninjas like totally jumping in solely to protect Konohamaru, and that resulting in like all those ninjas like ending up dying solely due to like Konohamaru. It's like the scenario that I'm going to say, and that way like Konohamaru getting that like learning that absolute lesson the hard way that basically as for like how important it is for like Konohamaru to like get stronger to if Konohamaru wants to protect like the lethal edge just like lethal edge then like Konohamaru definitely needs to get a whole lot stronger and also of like the hard Konohamaru also learning like the hard lesson that like if Konohamaru doesn't get stronger then at least Konohamaru would have like the responsibility to like basically stay away whenever there is like any war uh, uh, so that we like not put like the fellow like so that we not put like the ninjas of like the actual professional ninjas of like the legal age in danger like one hammer should be like staying away from like the if like one hammer stays weak then he should be like ensuring to like stay away and not of course turn into a burden for like all the other professional ninjas who are like putting their life on their lives to like desperately to totally protect like the nucleus. Like basically Konohamaru learning this extremely crucial and hard, crucial and important lesson like that in such an extremely hard way is like the scenario, the scenario that I'm looking for different and that is very much. So on top of that, like the old man Hokage, like the Hokage is like that by the hands of like Orochimaru, which I'm definitely protect to eventually happen would be like these two things happening would be like giving that absolute stop to that poor Tottenham. It's like the scenario that I'm going to bring in. I could bring out from these two incidents, like I'm going to bring Tottenham to like have that extreme change in his like and growth in his like Tottenham character. And to bring Tottenham from that point on would be like still would be having this like fun side, fun and silly side to Tottenham. Yet like I'm going to bring that would be also that extremely responsible side of side and the difference to grow within like one family from that point on. Definitely also like living for scenario that engages all the thing. And I'm also bring like exactly like Naruto, I'm also bring like and I'm definitely bring like eventually like in like the distant future I'm also bring like Konohamaru. Even while Orochimaru would still be alive, I'm just bring like Konohamaru in like distant future, even learning of the fact that like I feel like Konohamaru and Orochimaru would also be confused like once this war, current war and like the liquid would be ending and like at that point but the friends of Konohamaru also be confused as to like why like the body why like the ninjas are like basically like the bosses are not showing like basically the body of like the Hokage. So like I'm wondering maybe initially like on Hamaru being in disbelief as like the third Hokage's like grandpa having died. But like I'm considering like eventually like on Hamaru like the future like learning of like the thought that basically the body of like his grandpa, like the third Hokage, had been taken by like this villain by the name Orochimaru, who's like basically and like the connection of Orochimaru to like the snake and all that. And was different definitely for Konohamaru in like the sense with the finding out. And that way, like the words of like the old man Hokage, the third Hokage that he had told to like Konohamaru about like the rainbows and like the snake, like all these things, eventually forming that absolute connection with like Konohamaru, having like a lot of connection and importance to like Konohamaru's life. In like the results also like scenario that I consider. And was the only thing eventually Konohamaru being determined to like get stronger so that like one day with like that the then to like get revenge on like the third person who basically had taken like not only taken the life of like the Hokage but also had taken his body to and basically like all that like I'm preparing to like eventually happen in like the centuries and so thinking about the preparation that like Orochimaru won't be just taking the life of the government Hokage but like it will be like ending up the third Hokage would be like after like his defeat and after like the Hokage will be dying, like Orochimaru will be taking like the third Hokage's body as like his like fourth coffin, like weapon. And like while Orochimaru will be like leaving like the village, like Orochimaru will only leaving his like the body of like the third Hokage. It's also like the scenario that I'm looking at the and the impression. So definitely my personal impression right now is that like it would be that it's the leaf village alone that would be having like the giant massive mountain face statues of like the previous Hokages in like the mountain. Not just the previous Hokages, but like also of like the third Hokage as well being present. Like basically this massive face statues on like the mountains and the thing that will be like something that's like only exclusive to like the Leaf village alone. Like none of like the villages out there will be having such face massive face statues with the name different. And like the reason for that as well about the things maybe would be like Orochimaru. It's definitely my personal evidence. Precisely because of like the Leaf village not being able to like give a proper burial to like their previous Hokage heroes like I'm considering that with like Orochimaru taking away their bodies, like I'm different. Maybe it might be precisely due to like the village feeling bad about it that I'm different in order to like compensate for that, like I'm different. They might have probably decided to like create those massive statues of heroes to like always keep remembering them, even though like they weren't able to give a proper burial to like their heroes previous Hokages, like in order to like only remember always for them to like never forget and always remember them like under the different like kind of realization that like maybe it might have been according to like the decision of like the fourth Hokage, not his father, like the fourth Hokage, while he was like the Hokage of like the league village. Maybe it might be due to like his decision that basically all these like giant massive phases of like the previous Hokage might have been erected onto like the mountain areas of like the league villages that and at that point I was preparing like there might have been like pressure for like the for Hokage's face as well to be present beside like the previous two Hokages. But like I was wondering, like it might have been definitely like the fourth Hokage himself might have been adamant about like not wanting his face beside on the mountains that and was wondering like he might have been of like the he might have been adamant about like basically uh wanting like this reason like the Hokage is the reason might have been precisely because of like them not being able to like give proper burials to like the previous Hokages like to have their statues face statues be built on like the mountainous area of like the Leaf village. So definitely my preparation. That might have been what might have happened to certainly my preparation. But like once like the fourth Hokage had like died to protect and died protecting like the Leaf village at that point I'm preparing like definitely that attitude due to that attitude respect towards like the fourth Hokage I'm preparing like definitely it might have been like the third Hokage that might have like given the order to like definitely like build like the statue of like the fourth Hokage beside like the statue of like the first and second Hokage and then those type of things that way like the fourth Hokage statue might have been built. And at that point I'm also bring like with just like the third Hokage at that point being like the current Hokage and with just his face statue alone not being built like I'm bring there might have been so much pressure from like people around like the village for like the uh, Jonans and like all sorts of like people and ninjas like around like the village for like the that like the third Hokage is also like their hero and basically his face statue also should be present. Uh, like and that might be how like the third Hokage is like face statue as well might have been like built on that precise mountainous areas definitely might have been the entrance. So like definitely my very question right now is basically that definitely there would be like even more like unrevealed great number of creators like within like the lead village that would be like secretly totally allied to Orochimaru definitely my question and that would be the first reason for this. This is just like my personal appreciation for like that precise third coffin that basically Orochimaru was about to like erect from like the rooftop, like which like the old man Hokage had basically stopped. Like that coffin might definitely contain like the body of like the fourth Hokage. It's definitely my favorite image. So like I'm picturing like especially since like the fourth Hokage had basically died. And to protect like the Leaf village and basically at that point like the entire war that might have to protect like the Leaf village from like the 19th and basically uh, it might have been luckily what might have happened. So like I was for instance like through that like act of like the force of again like the lead village might have been totally gotten like protected and they were like sealing like the night and pops onto like Naruto and everything basically like with that like even though like I'm praying like with that with that action of like the pop Hokage like the leaf village might have been saved back then. So like even after that like I'm praying with that like the war might have straight away ended soon after that. It's also definitely my preference. Yet for like Orochimaru to like eventually get his hand uh eventually get for eventually for like even like the body of like that very Hokage to like end up in like the possession of like Orochimaru. It definitely would have to do with like definitely they're definitely existing some sort of like a great number of traitors, like underbuilt traitors, like allied to Orochimaru within hiding within like the Leaf Village in like the fox disguise of like being like known to like the Leaf Village. Definitely my favorite. It might have been precisely them that might have stealthily might have like transported like the body of like the Hokage and that might be how like eventually they might have gotten that body of like the Hokage to Orochimaru, and that might be how like Orochimaru right now in like the person will be having like the body of like the Hokage Naruto's father as well, which definitely my personal impression. And I'm also thinking eventually like the distant future once like Naruto would be like eventually totally or boring and defeating and taking the life of Orochimaru. At that point, I'm definitely thinking definitely like Naruto at that point that basically after defeating Orochimaru, Naruto and those different definitely return straight away returning back to like the Leaf Village. And at that point, like once like Naruto would be entering like Leaf Village, like Naruto would be like definitely everything would be bringing like the bodies of like the first the actual true bodies of like the first Hokage, second Hokage, as well as like the third as well as like the fourth Hokage at that point. It's definitely going to bring it will be like Naruto that will be bringing like all of their bodies and it will be only at that point that I'm just bringing like the Leaf Village will be finally be able to like give a proper burial to all their past heroes, the first, second, third, and fourth Hokage. Uh, that's a different future scenario that I'm just already bringing and my personal impression. Like definitely my personal impression right now as for like that besides one single and the Black Ops member who alone can't recognize like the first as well as like the second Hokage. I'm going to bring like especially I'm going to bring like it would definitely have to probably have to do with like that process and the Black Ops member being like secretly a traitor. Definitely and it might get only allied to Orochimaru and like Sound Village and might have been like a new recruit of Orochimaru definitely might be and he might be totally not updated with like basically like Orochimaru having in like the past necessarily having like basically stolen like the bodies of like the first and second Hokage. It's definitely my preference, precisely because like and the reason for my theory, this theory and predictions that is precisely this like if this precise exact single and Black Ops member was actually genuine and loyal to like the League Legends, was like born and grew up in like the League Legends, then like the massive giant face statues of like the first, second, third, as well as like the fourth Hokage being present right there this entire time in like the mountainous area of like the Leaf Village and still for him to not be able to like recognize like the first and second Hokage while they are like standing right there in front of him. Precisely because of like the preparing will be precisely because of like him most likely definitely being like a new recruit and like a secret ranger and like a new recruit of like the Sound Village and Orochimaru. It's definitely my personal impression. Okay, so like definitely not the impression right now. That basically right, since like reveal that like the first and second Hokage like brothers and like the ones who basically created like the started like the League Village like and the since like the third Hokage is like so extremely old and aged while like the right now with like with Orochimaru like bringing out like the first and second Hokage while compared to like the third Hokage like the first and second Hokage looks exactly like how they were during like their prime as to like how they were in the face statue and all that like I'm to be precisely due to like Orochimaru precisely having stolen like the bodies of like the first and second Hokage precisely at the very moment like then they died themselves like without before like either like it might be after like the people in like the legal might have buried them that and Orochimaru might have steadily remove them from like their bodies from like their grave and that way stolen them. So also like the motive that has been but like either ways it's like these brothers like the first and second Hokage were like the brothers to start as a legal while the current Hokage only like the third book again. Already he is like so extremely aged and since like for like a Hokage definitely uh, uh, you like someone who would be into like youth or like someone who's in like it's of like sort of like an extremely old age would be usually like the kind of person that will be most likely selected for like the such an extremely um, powerful position of like guaranteeing like and ensuring the protection to the entire state like the villagers like the position of like the Hokage and those different definitely like so precisely because of this reason collective all these reasons I'm different like Orochimaru might have been definitely been some things that might have been like roaming around just like world since like the way ancient past is definitely not very emerged. So like I'm remembering like Orochimaru might have eventually attained his like human form like from being able to like transform from like summon snake form, which would be his pro form, to like basically into like a humanoid, like human like form. Like I'm putting Orochimaru might have been able to like make it to that extent, even from like the Sebastian Himmel's pyramid. So like I'm remembering like Orochimaru might have definitely been present even before like the inception of like the Leaf Village. And hence like I'm remembering eventually once like the Leaf Village was started and basically eventually as like the first and the second Hokage who were like brothers were like ruled and I'm remembering maybe like initially like the Leaf Village might have had like might have been like initially the Leaf Village might have been ruled over by two Hokage simultaneously. So also like the possibility that I'm the first as well as second Hokage might have rolled all over like since they were brothers like Ambassador, like maybe like they might have only rolled over like the legal age together back then in like that system past the element of the and even back then like Orochimaru might have definitely been present in like the legal age and might have had his like uh body possession due to and everything and like might have been like present in like stealthily present in like the legal age in like an absolutely as like maybe like an absolutely different character and a person like he might have been living in like the place back then as well. It's definitely might have been the emergence. So like Orochimaru Shinden might have been to like basically to separately become like the Hokage of like the Leaf Village and to use that way to totally misuse that powerful position to like basically use all the strength and army of like the Leaf Village to basically to just like unprovoked in like an unprovoked manner and like reckless manner to like attack all the remaining villages and like to create like a lot of chaos with like the village might have been maybe like Orochimaru's initial intent is certainly might have been but like I'm remembering Orochimaru even from way back then like Orochimaru might have actually played a role in like basically the death of like the first and second Hokage. Definitely might have been and so like eventually, once like the first and second Hokage had died, like at that point, maybe like Orochimaru might have been only hoping for like maybe like the higher up the office, maybe like basically choosing like picking Orochimaru to be like the next Hokage. So like even back then, like Orochimaru might have been in some different kind of disguise. It's also like about that attempt, but like that attempt might have only of Orochimaru might have only failed with like uh, with like precisely like the third Hokage being chosen to like basically be like the next Hokage is definitely my good as well. Like at that from that point on, like Orochimaru's target might have been precisely like the third Hokage is definitely my good so like I'm thinking at that point like Orochimaru might have want to be use like some like just like body was going to want some other person and might have like totally not good for Orochimaru to like basically learn and like form a bond with like Don and Hokage to like eventually like betray him and basically to like eventually for Orochimaru to like study more of it about like Don and Hokage and eventually like to bring him down and like this like might have been like Orochimaru's plan so that like maybe after like the third Hokage that like Orochimaru might have of like basically the possibility that like team of the Orochimaru being able to be chosen by the higher authorities like by maybe like third Hokage to be like the next Hokage. I mean like after like the third Hokage is like if like Orochimaru might have probably thought like it Orochimaru somehow stealthily somehow studies and figures out like everything about like the third Hokage like Orochimaru might be able to like eventually like recommend basically take his life so that at that point like higher authorities like police might choose like Orochimaru to be like the next Hokage might have been what Orochimaru might have thought like so like not studying all about like the Hokage might have been like the reason for like Orochimaru possibly having like use another body was into and might have joined like the third Hokage under joined under like the third Hokage as like a student is also like a possibility that I'm also looking and maybe then I'm also preparing like eventually once like the third Hokage got on like I'm preparing like at that point like even before like Orochimaru could take the light of the third Hokage like I'm preparing that the third Hokage deciding to like basically that due to like maybe age related issues like the Hokage might have decided to like to select another Hokage to like to all over like the league village. So like I was referring like at that point, especially Naruto's father like the fourth Hokage in that he might have been back then like a Jonin level ninja and he might have been like creating a lot of due to his maybe eccentric kind of like Naruto things who might have had like eccentric ways and unique kind of ways of like doing things and that might have gained a lot of uh interest and attention from like higher ups and that might have gained like the attention of like the third book again. So he might have really picked and chosen like the fourth Hokage and I'm putting maybe like exactly like how in Kakagi students who are like after Naruto Sasuke and Sakura became genin like they were all like the three of them like Sasuke, Sakura as well as like Naruto were students of Kakashi and was bringing like a similar manner back then uh, Orochimaru as well as the fourth Kage like who back then might have been just a genin ninja so for what I'm using like me as well as the third ninja who might have been like the three trial students of like the fourth Hokage back then. I'm remembering back then might have been that precise like one ninja who just now recently had basically had revealed that basically he doubts whether Orochimaru is even human like so like that ninja and Orochimaru and like especially uh, Naruto's father, like the fourth Hokage as well. Back when they were all students, like they might have been perfectly, three of them might have been perfectly taught by like the fourth Hokage, definitely my culture episode. Like I was very, or he might have, or Naru might have only for like the Hokage to only take, eventually, at that point, like when like the Hokage might have been planning on like basically, like having a successor and basically to be like the next Hokage. Like at that point, like I'm preparing by then like Orochimaru as well as like the fourth Hokage as well as like the other ninja, like the three of them might have reached like 20 level ninjas by then, especially in the revolution. So like at that point, I was preparing like the Hokage, especially picking Naruto's father might have been like potentially that ultimate chosen for Orochimaru. So like definitely from that point on, I'm considering him seeing like the fourth Hokage and rolling over like the League Village. Like at that point, I'm considering like my younger is that like maybe after like the third Hokage had chosen Naruto's father over like Orochimaru to be like the next Hokage, like the fourth Hokage, like at that point, I was thinking maybe like Orochimaru might have been fed up of like waiting to be like the Hokage. That like at that point, I was thinking Orochimaru might have decided. Maybe it might have been at that point that Orochimaru might have formed in his mind to basically create his own village and call it like the Sound Village and that so that like Orochimaru and that way to like be the ruler of that village that he would be creating. And at that same time, like simultaneously Orochimaru might have also formed in his mind that he would be like also destroying like the legal age is definitely one of the favorites. So like with that absolute disappointment and like extremely frustration, like I'm preparing like Orochimaru might have like wanted to take the life and Orochimaru might have had that absolute jealousy towards like Naruto's father, with like him instead of Orochimaru being able to reach like the position of like the Hokage and becoming like the Hokage and basically that I'm preparing like Orochimaru might have definitely Orochimaru might have been definitely like the person like the main person behind that war even happening in like the league place involving like the mountain war which like eventually and Orochimaru might have ensured for like such a war to happen in like the league place with the safe intent of maybe like Orochimaru having the villainous intent of like basically wanting that war to result in like the fourth Hokage dying in that war. So like that might and for like the complete destruction of like the Leaf Village as well might have been what like the fed up Orochimaru at that point might have been attempting for through that war certainly not with emulsion. So number two, like that might have been how like eventually like the fourth Hokage. in that war, like basically having to like give up his life to like basically protect like the village and all that. Even happening might have happened in such a manner settlement of the so like maybe in that war like Orochimaru might have been only expecting uh for like the village to get destroyed, but like it might have been precisely once again like the Hokage like that might have only shattered all the plans of like Orochimaru and basically even outsmarted Orochimaru by like even sacrificing himself to get like through his sacrifice ensuring like the perfection of the village and sealing of like the Nightingale box into like Naruto as well. Certainly my those rebels. So like even then like I'm remembering even though Orochimaru might have escaped like the village still like that extreme unsatisfied kind of like a feeling and frustration might have only existed within Orochimaru that just like attempt to like destroy like the village and fail. So like I'm remembering that might have definitely been like that desire to like destroy like the to see like the destruction of like the village like that might have like that extreme desire might have been burning within Orochimaru's entire time and might have been what eventually might have even resulted in like the current situation. So, as like the present situation as well, like that I can like the village as well. So definitely my brother revelation. But still I'm going to this thing to my brother revelation. The like the destruction of like the village would be like something right now that Orochimaru should be totally seeing as like a side effect as for like uh, while Orochimaru's ultimate goal would be that precise role that will be currently present somewhere within like that force, which might contain like some sort of like a forbidden power which will be present somewhere in like the leaf village, about which like Orochimaru might have learned later on. Definitely my thoughts remember. So like right, and I was bringing eventually Orochimaru might have like make his goal as his like goal in turn in Orochimaru might have turned his goal into like an even bigger massive goal rather than just to like witness like the destruction of like the nuclear like Orochimaru might have decided that he wants to like only destroy like everything that he sees at like the entire world. So like I'm thinking that might be like Orochimaru's like pointless and ultimate goal that Orochimaru would be having in his mind. So like in order to achieve that goal would be like Orochimaru uh, even needing this like exercise scroll from like the leaf village as well as like Orochimaru right now even like wanting Sasuke as well like all would be to like eventually achieve that ultimate goal to like basically eventually like for like that ultimate destruction of the entire world which like would be like Orochimaru would be like probably after like ultimate goal. It's definitely my personal so like the destruction of the league it's right now in like the person will be something that Orochimaru will be only seeing just as like a side effect while he attempts to like precisely while he steals like that sword and of that Sasuke. So it definitely would be along the lines of Orochimaru would be like thinking right now. It's definitely my very impression. Yes, so like also definitely my very impression right now. That is thinking on those definitely I told you specifically Kabuto that will be like electrified and blue black of member in disguise that like currently Kakashi and Tyson they will be fighting. Which definitely my very impression. So like I'm sitting right now with the Kabuto sending like a great number of like sound based ninjas after like Naruto and Pro uh, I'm also putting like definitely that would be like consciously done by Kabuto. Definitely my preference. Definitely my preference that I'm sitting on to that like definitely Kabuto after like during like the second phase of like June exam after like Naruto Kabuto spent time with like Naruto and the different like Naruto's like kind-heartedness and genuinity all that like might have mostly rubbed off on Kabuto and I'm preferring definitely Kabuto's like right now would be like a totally different person. It's definitely my thought and definitely that change might have definitely happened within Kabuto. So like I was saying right now, Kabuto would be like in like right now everything Kabuto doing would be doing right now would be in like a convincing it would be like Kabuto attempt to like make things seem sparkly convincing to like the Sound Village as well as like the Sound Village and all of them. While at the same time like Kabuto what he would be actually doing would be in like a calculative and practical manner. Kabuto would be totally planning on like eventually for himself to like somehow stealthily trying to like save Sasuke for him to like Kabuto himself to like ensure that Sasuke doesn't get affected eventually. So be like Kabuto's plan is definitely my first revelation. And everything Kabuto will be right now doing would be like to ensure that in like would be like what Kabuto would be attempting right now. It's definitely my first impression. So definitely. And I'm also like that character change that Kabuto, that I'm also Kabuto would have definitely had would be precisely, would be like so precise the reason for like Kabuto being like feeling like kind of seriously disturbed when like Orochimaru had revealed this like intent to like basically earlier had basically revealed this intent in front of Kabuto that like Orochimaru intends on like abducting and taking away, like totally taking away like Sasuke. And basically when Orochimaru like earlier had basically in the first chapter he revealed that to like Kabuto, the fact that Kabuto only got disturbed on realizing that like Kabuto would be definitely due to that change in like Kabuto's character after spending time with like Naruto. Is definitely my top three impression. So like precisely because of this reason I'm considering Kabuto definitely would be eventually totally betraying like not eventually like already Kabuto would have totally in his mind would have already betrayed Orochimaru and like everything Kabuto everything right now Kabuto is like going in like a convincing manner would be like to like the Sun Village and the Sound Village ninjas will be definitely part of like that betrayal of stealthy betrayal of Kabuto against like Orochimaru. So like Kabuto eventually finding that definitely able to bring finally as like Sasuke would be about to be taken away. Like able to bring like by then able to bring definitely Kabuto definitely would be present besides Sasuke and Kabuto would be doing his like absolute everything to like stop like the abduction of Sasuke at that point. It's definitely my different percent. But like about bring even with like Kabuto's like calculative and strategical planning and everything able to bring still all that will like eventually end up backfiring for Kabuto and able to bring more like right now but the work like eventually for like Kabuto to like definitely die either by the hands of like by Kabuto be trying to stop Sasuke's abduction, being like that final end scenario before like Orochimaru leaving like the League and at that point I was most likely Kabuto either dying by the hands of Orochimaru himself or like Kabuto dying by the hands of like the right hand man of Orochimaru, which is like what I'm leaning more towards like Orochimaru's actual true right hand man would be like a totally different underworld character and to his precisely his summoning creature that would be like that like three-headed snake, giant snake that like attacking like the League village would be precisely his summoning creature, especially when the like I'm most likely leaning more towards the possibility that it would be precisely that underworld right hand man of like Orochimaru. That ability I think will be like a whole lot stronger than Kabuto and the Ability it will be most likely that will be like most likely eventually will be like taking the life of Kabuto and abducting Sasuke and basically taking Sasuke away and like him along with like Orochimaru like basically like leaving like the League village and with like absolutely no one being able to like no one probably in League village being able to like do anything about it at that point like the final eventual scenario that ends with Orochimaru and my good favorite and at that point Orochimaru we also having like that ultimate forbidden sword which would be containing like another like even more powerful forbidden jutsu. Just definitely my favorite. Exactly like how right now even it's now Orochimaru that basically currently Orochimaru is like summoning jutsu with which like Orochimaru have summoned like the first as well as like the second Hokage itself is like a forbidden jutsu. Like I'm considering like Orochimaru would be like that quest to like hunting for like the more stronger and powerful forbidden jutsu. And there will be one such forbidden jutsu containing for 70% in like the League village. And this would be like the ultimate target for Orochimaru right now going up to like the League village. It's I'm considering Orochimaru, specifically I'm considering that like Orochimaru will definitely succeeding and like taking getting and like stealing and basically leaving like the League village when Orochimaru leaves the village, like Orochimaru behind Sasuke as well as that for forbidden sword, that like Orochimaru, like the scenario that I'm going to bring.